Hello. So today we are going to be learning Likkutei Torah Bamidbar Daf Vav. This is the end of the Maimer Mespar, and then we are going to be beginning the biur on that Maimer, which is the bottom of page Vav on Madalid. Now, the Maimer is based on the pasuk Mespar b'nei Yisrael k'chol hayam asher lo yimad v'lo yisaper v'b'mkayim asher ye'amar lahem le'ami atem ye'amar lahem b'nei kilchai. So this is a pasuk in this week's Haftarah and the Haftarah of Bamidbar, and the pasuk reads, "And the count of the Jewish people will be like the sand of the sea, which has no count and has no measure." And in the place where they said about that he has no nation, they will say that they are the children of the living God. And so the Alter Rebbe questions how exactly that is to happen, and he begins with the premise that the Jewish soul is called Eretz, is called Olam, and he explains what it means for a Jew to be called an Eretz, and he says that this has to do with the Jewish thirst for divine revelation, and that the Jew is by nature thirsty to see God and to see a revelation of the Eibishter. And then he goes on to explain that being that we are in a time of Galus, we are prevented from feeling that thirst, and we actually don't feel thirsty. We unfortunately feel comfortable in Galus. And therefore, he brings a pasuk which reads that Pekדת ha'aretz, that the Eibishter remembered the earth and watered it. And he explains that what the watering means and what the remembrance of Aretz means is that the Eibishter has given us the Torah, and through the Torah we are the Eibishter has given us the mitzvahs, because that through the mitzvahs we are able to be more self-aware, and we are able to be more aware of our own thirst for God, and ultimately this brings us to the Torah, which is what binds us to Him. And that's what we learned so far. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to continue this story, and he's going to continue his reading of the Haftarah for Parshas Bamidbar. So we say that he reminds us that the whole idea that we would need to be taken out of a state of exile, and to be that the fact that we are not aware of our own thirst for Elokus is a result of Galus. That since we are in a state where there is no Beis Hamikdash, so we are required. We require this reminder from the Eibishter, which comes in the form of mitzvahs, as we said. It comes in the form of Torah as well. And through this arouses, this awakens our inner fire from our Yusay Da'ish, from our Daled Yesedus, that inspires us to be thirsty again. And the highlight of this galus, or one of the greatest examples of this galus, is the fact that during davening we find ourselves becoming inspired. During davening we so to speak water the earth through the words of tefillah. And then, immediately after tefillah, each person, according to their own spiritual stature, we all fall and we all become more magushim. We all become more aware of the material world and less aware of the spirituality that we have aroused. And the ultimately what happens is that our hearts go back to that state of helam. They leave that state of gilei that we have worked so hard to achieve during davening, and therefore, based on the fact that we're in Galus, we find that a fundamental part of our davening is us asking the Eibishter, please take me out of this current state and bring me to a state where we're promised that there will be no more evil, and that we will fully understand the Maila of our own Lasata, right? That we will be able to appreciate our own inspiration, and that our inspiration will have the ability to actually enact lasting change. And what that means is that, speaking in terms of the Daled Yesedus that we mentioned at the beginning of the whole Maimer, that the Jew is made up just like the world is made up of Dal Yisedus. The Jew is called an Olam because the Jew is made up of these 4 Yisedus as well. So instead of needing the outside inspiration that comes from Mayim and Ruach, Mayim being mitzvahs and Ruach being Torah, which helps us produce this thirst that we mentioned before. Instead, we're going to be able to produce that ourselves through the qualities of Afra, through our own Aretz state. And this is the yearning, this is the hope of the Messianic era, that we are praying that we enter that state where we don't need the divine to help us feel inspired, but that we should be able from ourselves to produce a lasting form of inspiration. And this then is the meaning of the pasuk. It says that the count of the Jewish people will be like the stars of like the sand in the sea. So the idea of counting mispar has to do with mitzvahs, that the mitzvahs were given with a distinct number, taryag mitzvahs midaraisa, and zayim mitzvahs midarabanan, which produces the number tarach, the 620, and then it was given to the Jews who are also numbered with the 600,000 sparks of the Jewish souls that have descended down here, and our entire reality is defined by numbers. Our entire reality is defined by measure and by division and by compartmentalization. And another interpretation of the pasuk that we mentioned before of because the haaretz, that you remember the earth, is because the malashon pikud from the is a term of counting. What we're saying is, to read the pasuk this way, is that you're watering the earth through the quality of numbers, through the quality of individual of compartmentalization, through the quality of division, that you allow us to feel this thirst through the mitzvahs, which the mitzvahs are in a state of mispar, in a state of precise numbered counting. Right, and this is our galus reality. But this pasuk that we're reading in the Haftarah for Parshas Bamidbar is describing the Messianic era, where it says that the count of the Jews asher la'yimad v'la'yisbar will not be measured and will not be counted, meaning that through our tshuva we reach a state where the numbers become meaningless. As it says that im Yisrael esun tshuva negalen, that tshuva, it comes from Yisod is not the mayim and ruach that we described before as being Torah mitzvahs. Tshuva is fire. Tshuva is from Yisod, and tshuva is this thirst. But the idea of tshuva ilah is a thirst for God and a hunger for God, which has no count, which has no limitation. It defies counting, and this is what we're saying, that in the Messianic era, the mispar of the Jews will no longer be limited and bound by a count, because it will be in a state of tshuva. Because tshuva is l'mayla miseder hishtalshelus. That hishtalshelus is defined by counting, is defined by measure. The whole point of the whole nature of a seder hishtalshelus is all about the minusha and all about the definition. And so too the mitzvahs, when they come down into seder hishtalshelus, as Ramach, Evar, and Demalka, they are all about the minusha, that the 9 spheres are each then are each have the 9 within them, and each of the 9 have Reish, Teich, and Seif, producing the number 243, and then plus the 8, which is the Heich Sadim, right? And this kind of rapid calculation is again a reference to the idea that the mitzvahs are all about numbers, are all about the boundaries that are put on them by numbers. But what happens when we do tshuva? When we do tshuva, we are reaching beyond that, the definition, beyond the numbers. We're reaching higher than Seder Hishtalshelus, and we are reaching a source in which the numbers of the 248 mitzvahs no longer have relevance, and that's where we reconnect with God. And this is the idea of the Kechol Hayam, that the sand of the sea. Because the sand of the sea, in the natural order of things, the sand of the sea is actually higher than the sea itself. Right? The earth is above the water. The fire is above the wind. So currently, Bisman Hagalos, we live and breathe on the Mayim and Ruach, right? The Mayim being the mitzvahs, the Ruach being the Torah. This is our kind of our bread and butter. This is what we rely upon for inspiration. But says the Alter Rebbe, in the natural course of things, in the natural course of the Dalit Yisodis, Eish and Afar are actually higher. And really, the Eish being our inspiration, and the Afar being our state of Aretz should actually transcend. And what the pasuk is saying is that when Mashiach comes, that reality of Afar and Eish are actually going to prove their value in a sense higher than even Ruach and Mayim, even Torah mitzvahs. And this will happen through the tshuva that we will do when Mashiach comes. And a physical manifestation of this will be that we currently live in a reality where the ground and the kreach atzemeach that is within the ground is not able to produce living beings, living vegetation, and it relies upon water to bring up that life. But in truth, the kreach atzemeach is in the aretz. The earth is the point, and it's only going to be in the Messianic era that the water is no longer going to be needed. And the Alter Rebbe says, "Al derech that this will happen with wind, that the fire and the earth are going to establish their primacy only when Mashiach comes." And this is why the pasuk. We now go back into the pasuk. This is the interpretation of the end of the pasuk that says, in the place where they said, "You have no nation," they're instead going to say, "These are the sons of the living God." And it says Alter Rebbe that it's b'makam mamish, says b'makam in the place that this in whereas, and in that moment that the Mashiach comes, that through tshuva, that the zedainus will become zechuyas, right? And there's going to be this true quality of ishapcha, at which point the bitter will be made sweet. And the process of this is as follows. So it's explained in the parentheses in the Sagrayim that is at the end of the Vav Amud Beis, that we mentioned in the previous mimer that in the previous page, that our relationship with God is one of the fundamental components of our relationship with God is that of Melech, and when it comes to the reason for that being that Ein Melech Bolei Am, that if we are to be His nation, then we are also going to be relating to Him from the quality of Melech. And one of the things about a Melech is that the nature of somebody having a nation that is his nation is indicative of the fact that the nation has something in common with the king, that they are in some sense on the same wavelength, share some quality. And the reason we are called God's nation is because the neshamas are all of machshava, and that we share this, so to speak, in common with the Eibusher, and that makes us His nation. Now we find there's a Gemara Yerushalmi which says that the only sense in which the Jewish people are called Tzion is when there is in the pasuk Tzion Ami Ata, that Zion, you are my nation. And the meaning of this, as is explained, that when we do mitzvahs, and when we learn Torah, and when we do Gemilas Chasadim, which is karbanos, we become Tzion, Shemesuyanim Ba'elam, that we are the so to speak the highlight of the world. That when we act in this Tzion manner, we then become His nation. So in other words, simply put, when we learn Torah and we do mitzvahs and we give karbanos, we become His nation. That at that point, Knesset Yisrael is called Tzion. Because at that point, Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people, act in a way deserving and befitting, drawing down His Eretz. And at that point, we are called His nation. Why? Because at that point, we reach a state in which we have, so to speak, something in common with Him, in that we as His nation are interacting with the Ramach Eivar and the Malka with the 248 limbs of the king, we are literally, in a very real sense, connecting to God. But what happens when there's a bittul mitzvah aseh? Right? What happens when we don't do the mitzvahs? What happens when we're missing out on those ramach ivarim? So in that moment, in a sense, we do lose our title of his nation. And so the pasuk says, "And the place where you called him, where we were called not his nation," in that very sense, that the nations of the world, or that we ourselves can look at ourselves and say, "I don't see how I am the nation of God because I'm in a physical body and because I've done averos," which means because I haven't connected to the king. Therefore, I don't find myself on the same wavelength to call myself part of his nation. I don't see myself as being k'maisa. I don't see myself as being on his wavelength. But when we do tshuva, right, when we revisit our mistakes and we figure out how to reconnect to the Eibishter, then we become his b'nei kel chai. We become the sons of the living God. That in that moment we actually reestablish ourselves as being the purpose of creation. Now, the other question that was brought up at the beginning of the mimer was another pasuk, which was brought as a proof text of the fact that we are his Eilam, or that the Jewish people can be called Eilam. And the pasuk reads, "Gam es ha'olam nasim b'libam mebli asher lo yimsa ha'adam es hamasa asher asa Elokim meireish v'atzei." That even the world I have given into your hands, into your hearts, so long as man will not find the action that was done by God from beginning to end. And so the Alter Rebbe very subtly mentions this question of, what does it mean that so long as you don't discover the actions of God, what is the interpretation of that? And he doesn't really return to it. And so now at the end of the mimer, he's coming back to it, and he's saying that now we can understand. What does it mean when we say that so long as you will not discover my actions from beginning to end? Says Alter Rebbe, God doesn't want us seeing his reality within the context of beginning and end. Because l'ma'ala, right, from God's perspective, darkness and light are equal. Beginning and end are the same. And when we are headed towards a messianic era where there is no count, where there's no idea of ma'ala u'mata, right, where the whole nature of the universe is going to be one in which that is beyond the minusha. And so the pasuk says, the Eibishter says, I've given the world to your heart, so long as you don't see the world as being limited to this beginning and end. I don't want you to see it. I don't want you to go there. I don't want you to see it from this perspective. And this is pshat ishmazriya tchila yaladas nekeva. It says that if the man is mazriya first, he is going to a female will be born. That when it begins with the isrusa le'ela, which is the way that life has to work now in the times when there is no Beis Hamikdash, it's going to be bound by misbar and tzimtzum. It's going to be bound by count, and the product is going to be a nekeva. The Alter Rebbe brings a few proofs to the idea of a baskol that is coming to us, that is trying to inspire us, and many he brings three different proofs of a baskol that is called out to the Jews to inspire them. But he hones in on this term baskol, because a baskol literally means the daughter of speech. It's a reaction to the kol ha'elyon, right? It's a reaction to God's voice. So when there's an ishmazriya tchila, when God is defining the relationship and the inspiration is only coming on high, the response is only going to be a reaction. It's only going to be nekeva. It's not going to have that lasting quality. And therefore, our reality today is defined by din. Our reality in the times when there's no Beis Hamikdash is defined by Gvura, right? It's defined by this we live in this, so to speak, Nikeva reality that's defined by Kavura, and so the inspiration, when it comes, does not last. It falls away. But when Mashiach comes, that it's Isha Mazra Strila, right? When Mashiach comes, it's all going to be all about the Makabel, drawing towards the Mashpia. It's going to be all about the Lasata without the Srusa Leila. What is going to be produced is a Zachar. And Zachar is the quality of Chesed. Zachar is the quality of lastingness. Zachar is the quality of permanence. Now, we have yet another Sagrayim, another parentheses, where the Alter is going to, where the Samachalik is going to advance a further theory, or further explanation of this idea of tshuva. So, another value of tshuva, and a higher value of tshuva, is the idea of Lifnei Havai Tzara, that before God I have made you pure. And the Chassidus mentions often this idea of tshuva bringing us to a state that is higher than Shem Havaya, because Shem Havaya is defined by these Daled Yesedus, the Ruach, Eish, Mayim, and Afar. But higher than the Daled Yesedus, right? When it's higher than the Daled Yesedus, meaning that it includes the Daled Yesedus, but they're not actualized. That allows us to resolve any of our hang-ups and any of our issues that have been affected by the Daled Yesedus. And this is the idea of Asher La Yisbred, that there is no count to it. That the Torah mitzvahs are this count, but the Bali Tshuva, the Torah mitzvahs are defined by a sequence of events and a lifetime of service. But then we find this idea that the Bal Tshuva is able to do tshuva in one day, in one moment, in 1 hour, in 1 second, right? The Bal Tshuva does not operate from this perspective of Asher Yisrael. He doesn't operate from the perspective of the count, and so we come and therefore the Bal Tshuva is able to come close to God in a way that the tzaddik could never imagine, because he is drawing down from a place that is higher than count. And so coming back to the original idea of the Lifnei Havaya, that the Bal Tshuva and the idea of tshuva is reaching the source of the Daled Yesedus and saying that there could have been a pagam, there could have been a mistake that happened in one of these 4 qualities, but I'm going to reach to a point that transcends all of these qualities. I'm going to reach a point that is Lifnei Havaya, that's higher than Havaya. And this comes back to the pasuk that we said, that Ha'olam nasan b'libam, that I have given the world into your heart. So the Alter Rebbe reads this as Olam Melashon Helem, that I've given Helem, I've given concealment into the heart of man, and I've empowered man to bring from Helem to Gilei. And this is going to happen through tshuva, that through the heart of man, right, which is the concealment that happens in the heart, this reaches to the concealed part of the heart is the pneumius of the heart, which is higher than seichel, and tshuva reaches that point. This is also why we sing Mimamakim Karasicha Hashem, that I called out to you from the depths. I called out to you Ma'omka the Liba, and through revealing the concealed component of the heart, this overwhelms and this brings to the fore our essential connection to the Eibishter, which transcends all the counts and all the measures and all the different definitions that are put on it by Torah mitzvahs. The Talumas Alev, the essential concealment, overwhelms all of this and brings all of this out. So the Alter Rebbe is now going to continue doing a reading of the Haftarah, 4 parts of Bamidbar. The pasuk continues and says, "V'nikavtu b'nei Yehuda b'nei Yisrael yachtav." I have gathered the children of Yehuda and the children of Yisrael together. So Yehuda is Melashon Apam Aides Avaya, that Leah says when Yehuda is born, that I now recognize and I now give thanks to God, which is all about the Mamata Lamaila. It's all about the creation coming to a state of recognition of the Eibusher. Yisrael is Lamaila Lamata. The Yisrael is all that is Yisrael is bringing from above to below. And the pasuk says that in the Messianic era, Yehuda and Yisrael will be drawn together as one, Hakol b'yachad, and they will be given this one title, because in the times of Mashiach, both the perspective of the Lamaila Lamata and the perspective of Mata Lamaila will be seen as one, will be able to operate as one, and they will be given this one quality that whereas in the times of Galus we see them as two perspectives, when Mashiach comes they will be seen as one. And the pasuk ends off Yigaldo Yom Yazriel, that great is the day of Yisrael. And so the Alter Rebbe gives an interpretation of this name Yisrael. Yisrael is Zrias Kel, because Chesed is called Kel, and through the tzedakah, through the Zrias, through the planting that happens by the Mata, which is the mitzvahs, through that we see this sprouting, right? The planting happens through the mitzvahs Bizman Hagalos, and the growth that we'll see will come in the time of Mashiach. So what we see now is right. What we see now is the planting, and we don't necessarily see it as a cogent reality. But when Mashiach comes, Yigaldo Yom Yisrael, that on this day we will appreciate what the planting was that happened through the mitzvahs, and we will appreciate ultimately that instead of seeing there being the night and the day, we will instead see there being a yom shemashasa kol b'chinas yom, that we'll see this all as light. So the final message of the mimer is the idea that instead of reiterating the idea that is mentioned throughout the mimer, that instead of seeing these two perspectives of darkness and light, we're going to understand how they are both parts of divine revelation. And with this we end the mimer B'haya Mispar, and we're going to begin the biur. So one of the ideas that was the biur is found at the last column on Daf Vav, and the biur is on the pasuk Peleg Elikim. So the Alter Rebbe brought down a pasuk that says Rabbas Ta'ashrena Peleg Elikim Malimayim, that greatly enriched is the stream of Elikim that is filled with water. And he does a very quick reading of this pasuk in a very rapid translation, and in the biur he's going to expand on it in much more simple language, a much more clear language. So as he said in the previous page, Elokim has two words within it. The words mi'ela. So the word Elokim is a combination of the words mi and the words ela. Now mi is right. Mi means who, and when we're saying who, right, the question of who implies that the person is not there, that the person is not revealed. Whereas ela is obviously when we say this, we're saying this is something that is in front of me. So mi ela are dichotomous, right? They're two sides of a coin. Me being the person being there, and ela being the person me being the person not being present, and ela being the person is the person being present. And the source of this is the worlds of Alma de Escasia and Alma de Esgalia. That and this is also right. This comes from the Shem Havaya, that the Yudke are Chachmo Bina, and the Vavke are Midas and Dibur. And so Yudke being Chachma and Bina is something that happens internally, whereas Vavke is the outward expression, the Midas, and ultimately the speech. So when Bina is Nislabish and Za, this produces Midas. And again, we have a similar the hidden and the revealed, because there's the Chesed as it is hidden within Bina, and there's the Chesed as it is revealed. So we've gone through several instances of the same idea, that it's always about a concealment and a revelation. This can happen either when with the Chesed as it is, the Chesed as it is in Bina, or this can happen as Chachma Bina within Midas and Dibur. So what does it mean when we say Peleg Elikim, the river of God, the stream of God? So what we explained in the Maimar was that this has to do with dividing the name of Elokim into the two parts. And when there's a division, right, when the two are able to be divided, what is happening is that that there is a gilui of that which is hidden. The state of things is that the chesed the chesed is concealed, and when there's this opening up, when there's this division, this allows for the chesed that was concealed to be revealed. And this is what we mean when we say the mi bara ila, that in the nefesh, this is intellectually, this is revealing the ava and yira that happens at an intellectual level. So that when Ela and me are in a combined state, that when they're in an Elokim state, Hester and Helem define the relationship, right? And it's concealed, it's limited, and the right, what that means Kabbalistically is that the Hei Chasadim that we're hoping to bring out are still within are still within Bina, as is explained in Tanya, the idea of a person who is whose emotions whose intellect is not capable of bringing out these emotions, and that the Ava remains in a state of Hester. But when we have this Peleg moment, right? When we have this Elam, when we have this Peleg moment, when we divide Elokim, the Ela comes out, and this is revealing the Ela from the Helem of me, and this is the mi bara Ela, that through the Hispainus, right, through our own meditation, where we contemplate God, we have the ability to, so to speak, divide Elokim and to bring out this, bring our own emotional connection to the meditations of spirituality.